Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I tell you what, I got a word that is going to just simplify your life. And it's the word simplify. It is so awesome when you think about that word. As soon as I saw that word today, I thought, that's it. I'm done. I got to learn more because I don't know about you, but I think that we could all use a little bit of simplifying in our life. So I invited an awesome guy, Peter. Oh, Peter.
Peter's good. Yeah.
Peter, whatever works.
Yeah.
I like Pete. So it's Pete Mohr from Simplifying Entrepreneurship. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Dave. It's just we'll have some fun and talk about simplifying entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. I tell you what, you had me at the word simplify because I'm like, seriously, who can't use that in their life? So what is that, what's going on at Simplifying Entrepreneurship? What does that consist of for you?
Well, ultimately, Dave, before we hopped on, we were chatting a little bit about why did you get into business? And, you find out once you get into business that, life isn't always that simple. There's a lot of complications and sometimes frustration and overwhelm and all sorts of different things around that. And what I try to do is to use frameworks that help simplify that, help create clarity, because it's my belief that when we have clarity creates confidence, and confidence really ignites momentum. And when we have that momentum to push through things, we can, accelerate what we want to do with our lives and our businesses. And, from that perspective, it's all about taking, I call it cutting through the chaos, essentially, with simplifying tools and these frameworks and ways to think about your thinking so that you can actually work on your business and not in it all the time. And the difference sort of between that management level and that leadership level, where management is, you're just putting out the fires and taking care of business every day and all that sort of stuff. And so trying to get people to sort of sit back, even if it's only for half an hour a week, sometimes it's for a day a week, or sometimes it's for 3 days a week, depending on where you're at with your business, but to really sort of work on your business, understand that, and then set up those frameworks. And once you have those frameworks, business gets more simple.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, I want to go back to that question because that really was, an interesting question. Why did you get into business in the first place? I love when people tell me, oh, you own your own business, right? And you're like, yeah, you own your own business. And they're like, that must be awesome, man. You get to set your own hours and you get to only work when you want. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know about you, Pete, but I'm like, okay, I don't say anything, but in my inside voice is like, seriously? I mean, it's kind of the opposite, right? There's plenty of days that I drive by the Walmart and I watch the cart boy and I'm like super envious of the guy, because he knows when he's going to start. He knows when he's going to finish. He knows when he's going to go on break, and he knows why he's there. He's there to move those carts. He's there. He's got a very defined system for living. And so there's plenty of times where I'm like, man, that would be fun, right? And so, I think as entrepreneurs, for you guys listening and gals, think of that defining question of why did you get in business in the first place? Pete talked about and is going to talk about frustration to freedom. We're frustrated. If you're frustrated, and we are frustrated, how did we get there? I didn't start my business wanting, man, I can't wait to wake up to be frustrated, right? I wanted the freedom side. So what does frustration to freedom look like for you, and for some of your clients? What are some things that you help them with?
Well, the word freedom is interesting to begin with, because there's freedom to and freedom from.
Oh,
and, that was, I learned that from one of my former coaches, Dan Sullivan, who's awesome coach with Strategic Coach, founded one of the best entrepreneurial coaches out there, bar none. And he talks a little bit about that. And I just think it's a great concept. And the idea of, what are you trying to get free from? Because anything you're trying, when you say, I just want, to get free from that, that's a frustration. So, and what do you want to have the freedom to? Those are the things that you want to do. So when we look at those freedoms, either freedom from our frustration, freedom to, or the things that we want in our lives and we want to do and we want to pursue. So we look at those freedoms from, and we're like, okay, well, what do you want to be free from? You want to be free from being tied down. If you're, we own some retail stores. So one of the things that I wanted to be free from is I wanted to be free from being on the schedule, having to be there, from whatever, 10 till 6 or whatever on a Saturday or whatever, whatever the case is. I wanted to be free from actually having store hours and being on that schedule. That was one of my freedom froms. My freedom to would be something like, well, once I have that, then I have the freedom to control. I can go in and out of my stores when I want to, when I know it's busier and when I know my team needs me and all this other sort of stuff. I can have the freedom to control some of the other areas of my life that I never could because I was tied down and bogged down with store hours, and that's just one example. There are just a boatload of other ones that sort of revolve around that. What frustrates you around the different things of what I call my 4P model? And basically those 4Ps are usually the things that frustrate almost every entrepreneur, and they are your product or service, but service doesn't start with this P. So, so it's basically your product and service offering. Sometimes there's frustrations around those areas. And then your process, the process around all of the things that you do, whether it's operational, human resources, your marketing processes, all the different processes that make your business click and your life click as an entrepreneur. And then your people, and all around the people, which I sort of outline people in 3 different areas. One is your ideal client. One is your team, the people on your team that help you every day and provide what your promise is to your clients. And the other one is your supplier base. And that supplier base is sort of outsourced suppliers. Maybe it's your wholesalers, maybe it's your, whoever's helping you deliver the product. So those 3 tiers, usually between the people, the process, and the product, that's where most of the frustrations come from. Because if there's problems within those, then there's none of the 4th P, which is profit.
Okay. Wow. So product, process, or process if you're up in Canada.
Yeah,
right?
that's
And then people, and then profit. And so, if you're listening, I like to put things into buckets. I like to simplify.
Me too.
That's where I think it just is so easy for me to think about the product or service. I've always said there's 3 main parts to a business. There's, the product or service that you supply, that you provide. There's the people that provide it, and then there's the people that buy it, right? The customer. So, we're in very similar camps here.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy the fact that you have these 4. What I'm trying to understand, and I guess what I want to challenge you on, is I'm feeling like I'm not going to the simplifying thing. Okay. I'm feeling a little bit of like tension because I'm like, oh gosh, there's all this stuff to do. So how do we break these down, or how do we simplify now that we have these buckets? We know we have them. Every good company has them, whether you want to believe it or not. But how do you take all this and then the freedom part that you talked about, which was just fantastic? How do you break this down to a point where it gets simpler?
Dave, it takes some time.
Okay.
Again, it takes some time.
That's it, Tom. Thanks. Okay, next week. Well, that was it. That was great.
Yeah. So podcast done. But
exactly, done. Shortest one on record for us.
But the reality of it is that most entrepreneurs want things done like that.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, well, just give me the tool. Let's do it. But actually, things take some time, and it takes some thought, and it takes some process to roll through those sort of things. And how do you do that? Well, you start with a small thing. I mean, a lot of times we get overwhelmed again just by thinking of this. Oh my God, I can't change my product offering. Oh my God, I can't change my people. Oh my God, I can't change the process. It's been there forever. Right. Well, you have to start somewhere. And the first sort of area is to be assessing these all the time. And once you start assessing these different areas, let's just use our product mix. And I own
Okay.
some shoe stores called Shoetopia here in Ontario. And
Okay.
from that perspective, a few years ago, when we looked at our kids department, which, we're addressing and assessing the product mix in our store. And
Okay.
that kids department typically we only sold shoes 2 weeks before school every year. And outside of that, it was, sort of so-so.
Sure.
And when we did it, they were always expected to be on sale because back to school sales and all this other stuff. So when you
Right.
put everything on sale and you run it down to a 2-week framework of your year,
Yeah.
there's no profit in it. And you're holding a whole aisle of your store, and you look at the whole layout of that sort of stuff and you're saying,
Yeah.
I'm keeping all these shoes for next year now. I'm
Yep.
using valuable space, shelf space in my store that I desperately need, and it's not profitable. So just because it's a legacy product, and that's an interesting word for a lot of people who have been in business for a while.
Sure.
You have legacy products or services in your business.
Yeah.
Are they actually making money? Are they actually something of interest to your ideal client, at that ideal person, right?
Sure.
So obviously in our store, it wasn't, because our ideal clients weren't buying those year round. So from that perspective, you have to look at that whole mix. And then we get back into the process side of things. And it's like, hey, our process side of things is not working here either, because we bring in all these shoes at a certain price, and then we have to almost put them on sale to the same price. And a lot of times even to less than what we brought them in for, and we're selling them for a loss. What
Yeah.
makes sense here? Just
Sure.
because it's a legacy product and people think we should have it?
Wow.
So when you look at those kind of things, I love this 80-20 rule. I mean, everybody talks about it, and it's
Sure.
not something new to most people listening, I'm sure. But the idea there is shave off 10% of your product mix. Keep
Okay.
that 80 that's really bringing you in the cash, and
Okay.
always be looking for the next 10%. What's
Gotcha.
the next thing that's going to make your client, your ideal client, their experience faster, cheaper, and better?
Yeah.
Because if you can find those products, then that's going to take a bigger portion of your product mix, and you can start sloughing off some of this other stuff that a lot of times, quite honestly, they're those legacy products that the owners say, oh, we could never get away with that. We've done that forever.
Sure.
Yeah, but is it making you money? And do your customers actually care about it?
Right. Wow.
That's just the product.
Sure.
And you basically go through this process of assessing your product, assessing your processes, assessing your people, addressing them from a business lens, advancing the ones that are going to work and need more work. And
Yep.
then here's the interesting piece: laying the accountability on someone else within your team, not you.
Yeah.
You want your time back? That's how
Yeah.
you get your time back. You
Yeah.
start actually allowing other people to take accountability through the processes of your business that are going to drive the revenue growth and make your promise a reality. And often when you allow them to have the accountability, because so many small business owners feel that they absolutely need to know everything, because if they don't know every single answer to everything, then maybe their customers will think they're stupid. Maybe their team will think they're stupid. Maybe Joe Blow on the phone will think they're stupid because they actually had to ask somebody else for an answer. Well, you
Sure.
should know. I'm the owner. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? There's only so much you can know. And
Yeah.
quite honestly, when you have a team around you that's propelling at a level of professionalism that you should be looking for,
Right.
most often they're going to actually know and do a better job at certain things than you are, because you're a specialist in what you're a specialist in, and they're
Yeah.
a specialist in what they're a specialist in. Let them go, let them flourish, and give them the accountability to own it.
Right. Wow. Well, I think so. We had some people that are clapping right now because they're like, delegation. Oh my gosh, I want to download like crazy. This is awesome. Right. And then we have the opposite camp where their brake lights are going on, going, I got to keep doing all this. I can't delegate to anybody. Nobody, can do this, Pete, as good as I can. There's just no way I can do this, So I enjoy the Eisenhower matrix, where it kind of talks about, delegating it, or, scheduling it, different things like that. So, I think that a simplifying tool, if I'm understanding that, one of those is to be able to help delegate, or to be able to improve your delegation skills? Is that
Oh my gosh, yeah.
one of those that you see as a simplifying tool?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And
if you're, go ahead.
I roll back to that. We have all kinds of different tools that I use to kind of bring those ideas out, but from that perspective, I love, right behind me, I've got a great book here for those that are watching. It's Gino Wickman wrote Traction a few years ago, and the whole entrepreneurial operating system. And one of the things that I like in the entrepreneurial operating system is he takes an organizational chart and rebrands it, and he calls it an accountability chart. It's the same chart.
Sure.
But the framework and the language around that chart, and having it as an accountability chart. And when you're moving those people around in the accountability chart, and it's like, oh, you mean I'm actually accountable for marketing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm actually accountable for sales? When we've used the nomenclature, the language around some of those things, it really starts to change the perspective. And if we use that in communicating clearly within our business as a leader, at our team meetings, at our stand-up meetings, at all these other things, I'm not the head of marketing. I have another person in my business that's the head of marketing, but I am the talent. So when Brock, who's looking after marketing, basically says, Pete, we're going to run a special next week. Can you come in and do a video for us? Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling him just because I'm the owner. His accountability is do that whole stuff, like get it all ready and tell me what I need to do. So I actually lie underneath him on the accountability chart there. He tells me, come in, get the video. Once you get the video, I'll get it up. I'll post it, I'll do all that other stuff. And it's like, I'm just the talent there. Yes. Am I Brock's boss from the ownership perspective? Yeah, I am. But I'm also his subordinate under the marketing side of things. And when you start looking at things like that and you start laying them out so that everybody has their accountability and there's no confusion around the accountabilities, which often happens with businesses under 20 people, because everybody's always trying to bypass the accountability people and go to the owner or whatever the case is. You can't let that happen. I mean, there has to be strong standpoints around there where you're reflecting it back to the person with the accountability and backing them up on it, or else they're not going to feel like they're truly accountable. And that takes time. We get back to that what we just talked about. These sort of processes, these sort of things that you're putting in place take some time, and it's okay. And when we look at procrastination, a lot of people procrastinate this sort of thing. Well, how do you break procrastination? You break procrastination by cutting some of those great big sort of chores that you think could never actually happen into smaller chunks that are bite-sized and doable. Think of it as a weight program. If you're going to the gym, you're not going to lift, most people, 200 pounds on their first day, but you might lift 20. And then 40, and then 60. And then, you know what? A year or two down the road, you're up to 200 if you stay at it.
Yeah.
And that's the way you have to look at this thing, because we get into business. We're not into business for 2 months. We're into business. Most people are into business for the long haul, because we want to have this life. We want to build this business so that we can enjoy the life that we want to live. We want to have our business working for us, not us working for the business. And when you look at that in a long-term perspective, you have the time to start setting these things up. And the time is now to start looking at that, to start looking at these things in smaller chunks. If something looks just way too big and there's no way I could start with a very small thing. I love the book Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, or some people have read Atomic Habits, which Atomic Habits is James Clear. And the idea there is breaking down some of these big habits, some of these big things in life into these small chunks. Well, you do the same within your business so that you can actually propel and get to where you want to be through the things that you do, because you can only do that when you have clarity.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point here. I mean, for you and I, we do a lot of work with DISC and are familiar with it. Well, high D person, the driven person is very results oriented.
Yeah.
So when you're telling me little small things, I want to see big results and I want them to happen right away. So,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to try and lift that 200 pounds, business speaking.
Yeah.
And I want to see these big, massive things. Well, interestingly enough, I spent a lot of time in San Diego. So from Milwaukee, when you leave Milwaukee on an airplane, and the pilot puts in the coordinates for San Diego, if maybe 5 or 10 minutes after he gets into his flight plan, if he thinks to himself, you know what, I'm going to do like a little 2-degree course correction, so little, nobody's going to ever notice that, right? Well, unfortunately, at that point, you end up at LAX, which is a painful 2.5-hour drive from LA, to down to San Diego. And so I encourage people all the time, hey, let's look at some really small course corrections.
Yeah, for sure.
At the beginning, they're not going to be noticeable. But boy, I tell you what, when you're landing in the wrong airport and you're 2.5 hours away, there's all of a sudden a huge outcome there. So, if you're listening,
it's a great analogy.
Yeah, if you're listening, just, let's do some small course corrections and do one. I don't care how small. I don't care what it is, but I tell you, that the Fitbit thing is kind of weird. And I just thought of it now, but I've been doing 10,000. I don't know what's magic about 10,000 steps, right, Pete? I don't know, but I've been doing, if after the end of the day, I look at my Fitbit and it's like 8,000 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm walking around my house or the neighborhood, to try and get to 10,000, but it's these little course corrections in our life. So, find some, like you mentioned, delegation can be a small course correction. Break down procrastination was another one. What's another tool that you have in your toolbox to simplify the entrepreneurship that you feel comfortable sharing with the group?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a couple, and I'm happy sharing them with your listeners, actually. And one of them is my one-page planner. So I get up every day. I've developed a one-page planner, and most of you have probably tried planners and things like that. Mine's digital; it's a PDF version, and I'm happy to share it. And we can put it on the show notes, Dave.
Oh, great! Thank you.
From that perspective, but it's really you're talking a little bit about buckets. It's bucketizing your life and bucketizing your business, and breaking that down from what you want out of your future down into sort of these other chunks of 3 years, 1 year, quarterly, and weekly and daily. And from that perspective, it's really just a guideline to keep you on track, to keep you in that rhythm of keep rolling those things down. And I use the word priority a lot in there and talk about prime priorities. What are my 3 prime priorities? What are my 3 prime priorities for the day, for the week, for the quarter? And as we're working through these, it allows you to make the things that you truly want out of your life happen. They come to life. And from that perspective, I think that's one of the ones that I certainly use. And because as a leader of your business, whether you own the business or whether you're the leader of the business, it doesn't really matter. But our lives are coupled together with our businesses. So often there's sort of this coupling of your goals and your wishes and your wants and all that sort of stuff. And you're laying those down into these buckets around what you want for your health, what you want for your wealth, what you want for your relationships, what you want your purpose to be and your mission, and how you want to use your time in your life. Yeah. And when you understand with full clarity about that, then you start building the back end of your business to deliver that for you. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, because you are the person that's in control of the business, and it's up to you to make that happen, right? So whether you have a coach helping you along the way, or that's the one thing with being, the great resignation is everybody's chatting about these days, right? Everybody's leaving their jobs and, talking about opening their own business. And for people that have never been in business before, if you're thinking of opening a business, and you've never worked, you've always worked for somebody, well, there's nobody going to hold you accountable. Yep. There's nobody going to sit there and say, well, are you making your goals, or you're the one that needs to be accountable? So you have to start using some of these frameworks and tools in order to hold yourself accountable and make sure, because it gets to the point, and you might sort of feel this, Dave, or your customers and clients along the way may have. A lot of the things that with simplifying entrepreneurship and my coaching, it's like my partner doesn't want to hear about it anymore. When I talk about, your wife or your husband or whatever the case is, right? And they don't want to hear about it anymore, right? Yep. And my friends don't know what the heck I'm talking about. They have no idea. They're not business owners. They just don't get it, right? They're great buddies and all this kind of stuff, but they don't get what I'm talking about. Right. And my team, as much as I have an open door policy and all of this kind of stuff, and so we're really open at our business, they don't tell me what they actually really feel. Right. So who do you go to? Who do you talk to? And from that perspective, it's an issue for people starting out that, they feel this sort of like, well, I don't have a boss anymore, and I don't know what to do. And then they get lost in this accountability trap, which is also often a big thing as well. So laying yourself out with some tools that are going to give yourself some clarity and confidence and accountability are important pieces.
Absolutely. So that's a cool piece. I think that purpose could be your potential fifth P, because it kind of goes back to what we said before, is why did you get into business in the first place?
For sure.
Your purpose, why did you do it? I mean, again, some people are free to get away from something. Some people are to get something. Maybe I hated my boss, and every boss that I've had prior to in my whole life, I've hated. And so I'm like, how bad can it be? Right. Yeah. I've run into plenty of people, Pete, that go, oh, I'm going to open up my, I'm going to put a shingle out and I'm going to open my door, and they're just going to, there's going to be masses of people coming to my door, Yeah. And nothing could be further from the truth, right? I mean, if you don't set this up right, it's never going to work. So I think purpose is a huge piece, but let's be real. Okay. The people listening right now, the entrepreneurs, business owners that are listening, if they're not dialed into their purpose, are they really going to stop what they're doing and, set aside time, like you said, every day, every week, every month, whatever, to really get clarity in that? The vast majority of entrepreneurs that I know are running so fast that purpose is like, it's an elective. It's not a mandatory course. It's like, I'd love to take that course, but boy, I tell you what, I got the finance course, I got the HR course, I got the business course. I mean, I got all these courses, and this purpose thing, sounds great, right? Are there some simple ways that you help people to create that purpose when they're at that spot? Or what do you do if somebody comes to you without a purpose?
Yeah. So almost every person that I start working with, we go through a purpose exercise. Gotcha. And it sort of coordinates with the one-page planner. We roll through all those buckets of life, truly understanding what they want out of their life. Because if you own the business, that's the most important thing. And, and the reason I have health and wealth and relationships, there's purpose behind all that sort of stuff. One is that, let's take health, for example. I love, there's an old adage that I heard from Joe Polish. I don't think it's his, but I think it's one that I definitely heard from Joe Polish, great marketer. And he says, the man who has his health has 1,000 dreams, and the man who doesn't has but one. So when you think of that, and I've lived this. My mother has been sick and in pretty bad shape over the last few years. And I sat on her bed about 6 months ago beside her when she was crying and tired and worn out and burnt out. Sure. And she basically said, all I want to do is feel better again. I felt that. And so, and it makes you think, what can you be doing today? What's that small step that you're going to take to live a better life, a healthier life, a longer life? So that, because when you're feeling that way, you're not contributing to your business, you're not contributing to the rest of the people around you, and it's a hard life to live. So from that side of things, when we think about the stress with the worry, all these other things, it's like you need to relieve yourself of those. You need to give yourself free days. You need to give yourself time back. What does that look like, and what do you want? And what do you want for your relationships? How do you want to do that sort of stuff? Who do you want to spend your time with, both at work and away from work?
Right.
So understanding that really gives full clarity, so that you have your life purpose before you go back to the goals of your business. And then we get into what I call a guiding principles session. And the guiding principles session is really all around mapping out. And for a lot of people have mapped out sort of their vision and mission and, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it's typically like super long, collecting dust in somebody's old trunk in the employee's trunk underneath their winter boots or something like that, right? And nobody even knows what it is. Maybe sometimes it was written by people that don't even work in our business anymore.
Sure.
So we pull that sort of back out. We make it speak that people understand, that resonate with the team, that resonate with the clients, that lay out the vision, the mission, the key characteristics of everybody that we want to work with us, the critical actions that need to be done every day to fulfill the mission by everybody on the team. We lay that sort of stuff out. That's that purpose. That's that sort of laying it out, so that then we can craft the processes that we talked about earlier in order to deliver that out to the world through the communication of our clients, of our leadership, of our team, and to our clients. And those kind of things, like I said, there's a process to it. It takes a bit of time. But one of the things, when you were talking about purpose, another thing that I'm happy to share is it's called the one-page prop, which is one of my other little one-page tools. I love one-page tools. And as business owners, we're decision makers, right? We make decisions all the time. We're making decisions, snap, snap, snap. Right. But when you look at that, the reason I like the one-page prop is because the word prop stands for your purpose. And it's just a nice little one-page sheet that you can fill out. It's a digital PDF too. So if you like to type stuff in, it's there. Sure. But basically it's your purpose. What is your intent or objective with the decision that you need to make? So this is a decision-making tool. And then the next one, the R of prop, is what's the result? So what is your desired outcome for this decision? And then the O are obstacles. What are the fears and barriers that you currently feel about this decision? What's holding you back? What's keeping you, why are you procrastinating on this? And why haven't you already made the decision? Sure. And then the last P is the plan. What is the systems? What are the systems and the methodologies that, now that you've thought about the purpose, the result, and the obstacles, what do you think you can set up as a plan? And then I've got another little line in there that's who, and that means who can help you through it. Sure. So you start thinking about, okay, I've got a plan now. I still don't know how to do this myself. We talked a little bit earlier about the fact that you don't need to know everything yourself. You don't need to know. It's okay. But what you do need to know is, need to know somebody that can help you through. Now that you understand what the obstacles are, what the plan you're going to develop, because you want to achieve the result based on the problem and the purpose that you have. Sure. Now you're going to flow this through in a nice little one-page sheet, give you full and ultimate clarity, so that you can then share that sheet with anybody around your team or with any of the who's that are going to be involved in it. And you can say, this is what we want to do.
Well, and I think that the interesting part of that is the coaching side, the who side. That's why, for people listening, that's why Pete does what he does. When you need somebody to come alongside you. I mean, we talk about it all the time. A guy like Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan, they were surrounded by coaches. Yeah. There's probably more coaches on looking at Tiger Woods' swing and asking him what's in his brain and what did you eat for breakfast. And, they have all these people looking at that because he can't see a glitch in his swing. He's got such a beautiful swing. And, now a guy like Charles Barkley, who doesn't have, and I know, Charles, you're listening, so too bad about this, but, his swing is like, oh my gosh, it's fun to watch because it's so bad, right? But you got a guy like Tiger, two opposite ends of the spectrum, but Tiger has all these people around him, teaching him, helping him, with that glitch. Entrepreneurs, we have a glitch in our swing. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Maybe it's your purpose. Maybe it's your product. Maybe it's your process. Maybe it's your people. Maybe you're not making any profit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why are we so egotistical that we feel we can do it ourselves? You don't
really
change your own oil. You don't fix your broken elbow when you get, you don't do certain things. I don't know why that's such a propensity for us to do it that way. So I really appreciate the prop piece and the coaching part, the who part. So again, I encourage anybody listening. That's why we're here. That's why, Pete does what he does. That's why I do what I do, to come alongside people, right? And to just say, hey, you got a glitch in your swing? Because you know what? I got a glitch in my swing.
We all do.
We all have one. So
yeah, I have coaches.
Yeah. And it's like, man, I got people that are watching out for me in certain spots that I call them blind spots. That's my next book I'm working on, is Business Blind Spots. Because the reality of it is that we all have them. And, the people that understand them and can learn from them are way more successful than the people that say, I don't have the problem, Pete, you're the one with the problem. When we deflect like that, it's brutal. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. I think about, I use the frameworks of the Olympics. We just got off the Olympics too, right? And how many of the coaches actually ran the 100-meter dash? How many of the coaches actually took the dive?
Yep.
None.
Yep.
Right. But they all had coaches beside them to get them to the very pinnacle of their individual sport.
Right. Yep.
So awesome. it is an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah. And again, if you look at coaching as an expense, then you'll never do it. Guarantee you'll never do it. Because if you look at it as an expense, if you don't look at it as an investment, for my clients, if they're not making way more money than it's costing, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that that's really cool. You said one thing as we start to come in for a landing today. You said something else that I wanted to touch on, because I feel like in purpose, or I feel like why you're here, when you ask that question, I feel like your needs, you're the entrepreneur, your personal needs are really way down on the list. I don't hear a lot of people say, I'm in business because I want to make a ton of money, or I'm in business because I want my financial, personal freedom, whatever it is. I don't hear that as much as I want to serve others. I want to provide jobs, and there's no right or wrong to it. I'm just curious if, where you stand on that. Where do my needs as an entrepreneur come in when we're talking about my purpose in a business?
Are you asking me specifically, or from a coaching standpoint?
Just from a coaching standpoint, if somebody came to you, and said, my needs are, I want to make a ton of money. I don't want to work for the man. I don't want to work weekends, whatever it is, in some cultures or in some worlds, that's really frowned upon. And I'm just curious where you land on that kind of stuff.
I have no problem with people wanting to go into business to make money, if that's what they want to do. Because I'm not there to tell them what they want. I'm there to help here to help them get what they want. If if they have full clarity about what they actually want, and that's that first piece. Right. We get full clarity of what you want, then let's drive the business to make that happen. And I can help you along the way to make that happen, because your choices and my choices are entirely different. And there's, I don't have an issue with that. If we're talking about illegal stuff and things like that, then I'm not interested, but it's just not my cup of tea. But from
illegal, Pete, come on.
But really, I don't, it doesn't matter to me what your purpose is. It matters to me that we know what your purpose is, so that then we can take the business and help you get there. Because that's my job as a coach, to help you get to where you want to go with the clarity of where you want to be. And when I look at it from my ultimate purpose, I own a few different businesses. I've talked about a couple here today, but sort of the reason I'm doing what I do with coaching is because I'll give you my grand vision, not my mission, but my grand vision is that I truly believe that business owners and entrepreneurs are the backbone of every community out there.
Sure.
They're the people that employ. They're the people that give outstanding amounts of money that hardly anybody ever even hears about because they do it under the radar.
Right.
They run the service clubs. They volunteer. They run the volunteer organizations. They're often the coaches on your little league hockey team or baseball team or gymnastics club. They're often the people that are the guide leaders and scout leaders and different things like that. They're the leaders of the churches in most cases.
Yep.
They're the ones that donate for the new wing of the hospital or the steeple on the church or the playground in the community center. So when you see that, the only way they can do that is if they have a couple of things to give back. One is give back their time to help the community. And two is to actually give back some of the profit that they have been able to attain through the proper running of their business.
Sure.
So if I can help them deliver more profit, give them back more time, then in some small way, I've done some contribution for me to help you in Wisconsin or help somebody in Portland or help somebody in Florida or somebody in England, because all my coaching's done virtually and it doesn't really matter where you are. From that perspective, I've helped in some small way build a better community. And when I look at my legacy, how many entrepreneurs can I touch to help them grow their business so they can give back to their community? And, somewhere down the road, it's like, I was a little part of that. And that makes me feel good. That gives me energy and that gives me excitement. And it's not necessarily about the money. It's about that sort of legacy that I can hopefully help people through in the long run. So that's my vision.
That's great. And
what's yours is what I often ask, our clients and that sort of stuff. And if you don't have that sort of clarity, then it's really hard to build some of the stuff around it. You're just kind of like aimlessly shooting around and hoping stuff sticks.
Yeah. So, I kind of equate that to, I tell people, are you a golfer, Pete, at all?
I golf a bit. I wouldn't consider myself a golfer, but yes, I golf.
So if there was we're in Wisconsin here right now. Yeah. So I'm in Wisconsin. So if there was a brand new golf course that just opened up in Wisconsin, and I invite you in and I fly you in and I pay for everything and I get you, and we stand.
Sounding good already, Dave.
You're good, ready? Now you're ready, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be cold tonight, so we'll see. But the interesting thing is, in this new course, we stand on the first tee box and we look out, and there's the weird thing about this golf course is the unique thing is there is no green and there is no hole. What do you aim for? And that's what I think is so unique. So many business owners don't have a green or a hole that they're aiming for. They're just swinging clubs.
Yeah.
And they have no clue where to go with this, So that's where I think the purpose, and you talk about a legacy, and the tragedy that's happened in our life is I lost my dad in July of this year. And unfortunately, through this, I was talking to him and I'm like, Dad, what legacy do you want to leave behind? Yeah. You invested your whole life in working for other people. You poured out your life into other people. What do you want to be remembered for? What is it that you want, your legacy to be? And Pete, he had no answer. And it was so hard I keep asking that question and I keep asking to people, and they're just like, you know what? I'll get to it. Don't worry. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And unfortunately, we tend to not get to it. And so I'm in that spot right now where I'm wrestling with that question. What legacy do I want, to leave behind? And so again, for those of you listening, that's a great question to wrestle with, is what legacy do you want to leave behind? And simplify it. It doesn't have to be really complicated. No. Right. And so I appreciate you sharing that stuff. So,
and if you can put it in a story, it makes it even better. Right. If you can just craft a little story around it, then, something that's easy to tell, then that really makes it sort of catchy and memorable.
Sure. That's great. So I got two more questions and I'm gonna let you go. Okay. What's Pete Mohr's tip of the week for the people listening today?
Tip of the week. Well, I think the tip of the week would be, literally, you've heard a lot of stuff here today. And my tip would be to look to do one thing in each of those buckets, one thing around your product, one thing around your process, and one thing around the people. And remember, the people, it's your client, your team, and your suppliers. So if you do one thing, small thing to start right now, as soon as you get off this podcast, then your business is going to be a whole lot better for it.
Awesome. I love little course corrections. Like we said before, they're so powerful because, again, think of the opposite. Oh my gosh, I have to change my company name. I got to change my company colors. I mean, we don't do that, right? We just leave it. And I get that you need upgrades and ups, and tidying up and things like that. But we're talking about little pieces, what are, like you said in your shoe business, what are, what's 10% of the product that we think we can get away from so that we can keep our options open and think outside the box a little bit. I mean, stuff like that just can transform a business. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So the second question is more fun than that. If you, what's one thing that you feel comfortable sharing with the audience that they probably don't know about you?
Well, for those that aren't watching video here today, I'm a bluegrass musician. So I like to pick and grin bluegrass music. And, I've got a mandolin behind me and another guitar here, and played in a bluegrass band for many years, and have been a little bit on hiatus here because of COVID, but have recorded a few bluegrass CDs in the past, and enjoy that sort of side of things, and looking forward to kind of getting back into playing music with my buddies here again soon. But yeah, I love bluegrass music.
So how hard is it for you to grab one and play us a little something here as we wind this down?
It would be a bit hard because I actually haven't tuned either of the instruments in the last 2 weeks. None of us would
know. Okay.
Yeah. So it's been 2 weeks since I actually had one in my hand, because I've been doing some other things. Awesome. So I probably would not elect to do that, because those that did know would be like, oh my God, what's he doing?
Yeah. Oops. Where do I buy that CD?
Yeah. Next time we hop on, I'll make sure to have one going for you, and we'll let her rip.
That's so cool. That is so awesome. And I think we try and say this every single week, rather than get off of this podcast and jump into something else. I really want to challenge you to take something away from this, one thing, however little, however big, challenge yourself to try something different, challenge yourself to look at something different. Yeah. And, if you're running into any trouble, that's why we're here. So Pete, if somebody was, really touched and inspired by something that you talked about today, and they want to get in contact with you, maybe they want to check out your podcast, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
So you can find everything about me really at Simplifying Entrepreneurship. So I know it's long, and I should have simplified that down. Maybe it is too long words.
.com for anybody else, right? How about that one?
Yeah, no, I couldn't get it actually. But so from that perspective, if you Google, then you'll get to my podcast, you get to my website, all that sort of stuff. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a fair bit. Instagram at Pete Mohr, LinkedIn at Pete Mohr. So those are the best ways. We'll include a couple of the links. If you want to download the one-page prop, it's on my website. You can just go to my homepage and scroll down to the bottom, fill it out, and you'll get the one-page prop. And I'll give you the link, Dave, after we get off, with regards to the calendar as well.
Absolutely. Great. We'll add that to the show notes. So, wow, Pete, you added a ton of value today. And again, Thanks. If you're listening and you didn't get anything, I got to say that's on you, because he offered a ton of great opportunities, a ton of thought-provoking questions. And again, a little course correction each week is all that we're here to try and offer. So thank you so much for carving out some time for us, and in the midst of all these other busy things that you got going on. I appreciate all the advice to the people. And again, check out his website, and check out, is the podcast the same, Simplifying Entrepreneurship? Is it called that?
Yeah. Same thing. Try to keep that simple.
Good.
So yeah, the podcast is Simplifying Entrepreneurship as well. And one last thing I was going to say, we just came out with an awesome assessment. And I have an assessment on my site right now. If you go to my homepage at Simplifying Entrepreneurship up in the top right, and it's a good assessment, but probably by the time this launches, I'm not sure when we're going to go live with this one, but by the time we launch, there's a brand new one. And it's going to be, when you fill out the assessment, it's about 12, 15 minutes long. You're going to get back between 50 and 60 pages in a PDF of a document that's catered to your answers, that really outlines what you're doing awesome at and some of the areas that you need to work on. So as we're coming up to the new year and all this sort of stuff now, you know, these are some of the things you can start to put into the plan to make those little steps that we're just talking about, those little course corrections along the way.
Great. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Anytime you can get 50 or 60 pages, our disc assessments are like 50 or 60 pages.
Yeah.
There's a ton there, right?
And
it can be very overwhelming. So I'm sure Pete would be happy to help you simplify those, and rather than feel overwhelmed and frustrated, and get you to the freedom spot. So, so again, check that out. Simplifyingentrepreneurship.com. And then, you know, you'll be able to find a ton of great stuff from there. So again, Pete, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And, you know, I know that you're a northern, there's very few people that I talk to that are north of Wisconsin. You're one of them. So,
well, I'm not, I'm actually just kind of east of you guys, across the Great Lakes.
Okay. Even worse.
Yeah, I'm just about an hour outside of Toronto.
Our water. Okay. It's our water. Okay?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's, oh, here we go. We're going to have a fisticuffs. It's going to come to that. I knew it. So awesome. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for hanging out, and looking forward to hearing that mandolin tuned up next time. And I'm going to have to encourage you to play some. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. And thanks, Pete, for your time. And again, one course correction this week. I challenge you to do it. I double dog dare you to do it. Okay. Have a great week.